Hi, I'm Rhiannon Guilfoyle, and I will be doing my presentation on Italian theater. So I guess to begin, the origins of Italian theater it began around 1485. Italian rulers began to finance productions of Roman plays or adaptations of them. They also began to write their own plays. So Italian theater and operas, which go hand in hand, sort of started or stemmed from Roman and Greek tragedies and productions. Nowadays, they don't sort of parallel them as much, but back then they were sort of the same. But Italians sort of developed their own sort of theater, and as you'll see later on in the presentation, how that came about. One of the first tragedies was Sophonicia by Gian Giorgio. A chorus of 15 was used, mirroring that of Roman choruses. So, Roman theater used choruses even in plays to really heighten what was being told. And in Sophonicia, they did the same thing. A chorus of 15, which is what was used in Roman shows and Greek shows, and kind of just intensified what was already going on. Or they were also used to sort of help explain the story a little better, because audiences used to get confused. So they were used to help tell the story a little better. Between the 14th and the 16th centuries, the Renaissance drama developed. So this was kind of more medieval-ish, so more fantasy-esque. So whatever you think of fantasy, witches, elf, whatever you want to think of, that was kind of incorporated more in the Renaissance drama era. But post-Renaissance drama era was the neoclassical Italian theater. Neoclassical Italian theater shied away from using fantasy and supernatural elements and stressed reality that taught moral lessons. So basically, they just didn't like what Renaissance drama used, which was the whatever you want to think of, fantasy-esque aspect, and they wanted to focus on pure acting, raw bone acting, reality, what happens day to day, and just stress moral lessons that can be learned from that. Italian staging was made popular by using perspective, architecture, and painting, thus giving the illusions to audiences of depth and distance. Scenery and stages were arched to help achieve this look. So Italian stages really, were looked upon as really prestigious, because they really created new and innovative ways of portraying shows. For example, the depth and distance. They used perspective to really create more spacious areas, more, for example, if it's like a house, more rooms, more longer hallways, whatever you're kind of creating. So for example, if you were looking at it, it would look like this going, and it's just maybe like a backdrop, which is just a sheet painted, or maybe they use like props and such, but it's really a small space, but they make it look really big. Italians are very interested in the architecture of theater. The Teatro Olimpico was built between 1580 and 1584 and was used for many productions. The Teatro Farnese at Parma was considered the prototype for the modern stage. So the Teatro Olimpico was the first theater to really utilize these new and innovative ways of portraying theater. They used perspective and distance and really created that element and really got the audiences going with that, I guess. And then the Teatro Farnese was kind of what theaters are based on now. Though there are many, differences, of course, but they're kind of, when looked back at raw bone, they're pretty similar. So for example, the stage where it's like the audience and then the stage, instead of maybe a round theater, they, or as we call it, a proscenium now, that's kind of what it's based on, the Teatro Farnese. Okay, next, comedy. So comedy was also used and developed. It was called Commedia dell'arte, was the comedy of professional players. It was separate from amateur drama because of the high level of performances, and two main aspects of Commedia dell'arte were improvisation and stock characters. So improvisation is sort of thinking of things from the top of your head. It's not scripted, it's just whatever you feel like your character would say is what you would say. And today it's used mainly for comedy. When you think of improv, comedy comes straight to your mind. For example, Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's completely improv, and it's all comedic. No one really thinks of serious and improv. They don't really go hand in hand. And stock characters are flat characters. They don't develop at all in the story. They sort of just are them. They're the stereotypes. And so for example, and I don't, don't believe these, but for example, maybe the grumpy grandpa, the dumb blonde, the jock, the nerd, that kind of thing. I mean, of course it was different in like Italy, so maybe the mean king or something, I don't know. But it's that kind of thing. They have no character development. They're just there. They're the stereotype. They're who they are. You know that, and they're there. And they're comedic, so that's what a stock character is. And finally, modern Italian theater stems a lot from Roman and Greek roots. Though has adapted and developed a lot by themselves, theater around the world would not be where it is today without Italian theater leading the way. So like I said, Italian theater originally stemmed from Greek and Roman roots, especially with operas and stuff. But many modern theaters and plays and stuff would not be where they are today without Italian theater. Italian theater sort of like led the way for theaters around the world. And now I will well, it's one monologue, and it's a male monologue, so it's gonna sound off. But I will do the English version, and then, well, I'll do the Italian version and then the English version. My Italian accent is not very good, and it's hard for me to act the Italian one out because I'm not sure where it translates, but I can act out the English version a little better. So, here we go. Okay. Si morir lei, forma tutta questa messa in scena del mondo ci gira, possono anche smontare, potere via, sciadoro tutto, arretola tutto il cielo e caricarlo su un camion, col rimicero possiamo spengere questa luce bellissima del sole ci mi piaco tanto, ma tanto la sai, perché mi piaco tanto, perché mi piaco la illuminata dalla luce del sole, tanto porta via tutto questo tappeto, queste colonne, questo palazzo, la sabbia, il vento, la rana in concamero e mettere la grandine, la setel parmigiano, maggio, rino, luglio, il basilico, la api, la mare, la zucchini. Again, I apologize for my horrific accent. And this is the English translation. If she dies, they can close this whole show of the world. They can cart it off, unscrew the stars, roll up the sky, and put it on a truck. They can turn off the sunlight I love so much. You know why I love it so much? Because I love her when the sun shines on her. They can take everything away. These carpets, columns, houses, sand, wind, frogs, ripe watermelons, hail, 7 in the evening, May, June, July, basil, bees, the sea, courgettes, and scene. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you again.